The Cats show their claws in Tampa. The Caps look to close out the Habs, and the Jets continue to soar on home ice. We've got you covered on Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before, only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hey, hockey fans, welcome to another episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. I'm Eddie Garcia, a down but not completely out LA Kings fan on the West Coast.
And I'm Tyler Feldman, a lifelong Penguins fan, born and raised in Pittsburgh, but currently loving life in Austin, Texas. Tonight's episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Eddie, special night, Stanley Cup Playoffs, a Wednesday night, 3 games, 2 clinching games, 2 teams advancing, 1 team taking a 3-2 series lead, and this team, me and you, working together for the first time here on Locked On NHL Game Night. Special evening all around, Eddie. Very special.
Yeah, it's finally nice to work with someone who isn't a Boston Bruins fan. That has not been the case so far, but good to be with you and good to talk about some more Stanley Cup playoff hockey action as the Stanley Cup playoffs, the bracket, it's starting to develop, getting a little bit closer and closer. And we start with a series that some thought was maybe the de facto Eastern Conference Finals, a huge matchup in the Sunshine State, Lightning Panthers. Game 5, the 2 seed versus the 3 seed out of the Atlantic, and the Sunshine State showdown, not quite as competitive as a lot of people thought. Certainly me, I had Tampa Bay winning the cup in my bracket, but they were down in the series 3-1, back on home ice looking to stay alive, but the defending champs close it out on the road. They do it with another convincing 6-3 win. They take the series 4-1. And Tyler, I'm not surprised the Panthers won the series, but I am surprised how they won it and doing it in just 5 games.
I'm right there with you, Eddie. Shocked. I had Tampa Bay not winning the Stanley Cup, but I did have them winning this series, beating the Panthers. The Panthers, after that early dropping in this series, they come to life and they shut down the Lightning's power play. I think that was the big difference. Yes, Jake Gensel did score on the power play in this game tonight, and he scored a big one to tie the game at 3. He had both power play goals for the Lightning in this series. They finished just 2 for 18 on the man advantage, and that was a big difference because when you have the talent that this Lightning team has and you can't produce on the man advantage, then you put yourself in a hole and you give yourself a disadvantage. And the Panthers, credit the Panthers, their physicality was a major reason why they won this series in just 5 games.
Yeah, Gensel did show up. Some of his other star teammates, not so much. But we'll get to the Lightning in a moment. Let's get a report on this game from our local expert from the winning side. That would be the host of Locked On Panthers.
Panthers in 5. What is up, guys? Armando Velez here from the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Just walking out of Amalie Arena as the Panthers defeat the Lightning by a final score of 6-3 to advance to round number 2. They'll face the winner of the Senators-Leafs series. And for the Panthers, it was about the depth guys showing up. Etuler and just strong on the puck, stripping guys, and finding a way to get goals on breakaway opportunities. They scored goals of all kind. Alexander Barkov got his first goal of the series. Brad Marchand got 2 points as well for the Panthers, and it was just an all-around team effort. No passengers, and once again, the Panthers in this series, strong penalty kill. 16 of 19 in the series to eliminate the stars of the Tampa Bay Lightning. We're going to break all this down and more on tomorrow's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Your team every day.
And we thank Armando Velez for that little walk and talk with Armando strutting out of Amalie Arena, a winner as his Cats take care of business and move on. And he talked about it. It wasn't just Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Reinhart and some of those guys. Eetu Listerainen with a 4-point night, a goal and 3 assists. He outshined some of the big stars for Tampa Bay. And no Aaron Ekblad, suspended for 2 games after the hit on Brandon Hagel. So they didn't miss him either. The defending champs just rolling along right now.
I do think Tampa Bay missed Brandon Hagel, who was injured on that hit from Ekblad. I still think that 2-game suspension for Ekblad, a little extreme. I could see 1 game, 2 games in the playoffs. I don't totally agree. It is what it is, a league decision. Florida advancing to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs for the 4th straight season. I mean, I remember it wasn't too long ago when Florida was the laughingstock of the NHL.
Absolutely.
That was not too long ago. And now all of a sudden they are consistently winning games and winning series in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They were 3-0 in Tampa Bay in this series. Dominant on the road, out-hitting Tampa Bay tonight, 44-26. The physicality for me, Eddie's the big difference.
I totally agree. Yeah,
Cam was crying about how Florida was too physical and needed to be disciplined. Well, you discipline Aaron Ekblad, you suspend him 2 games, and you still are more physical than Tampa Bay. No one stepped up to the plate to match the physicality on the Lightning side, and that was a reason why it seemed very easy for Florida. Even though there were tough stretches, 5 games, that's it. That's all it took, Florida, to send Tampa Bay home packing.
Speaking of the Lightning side, let's get a report from that side of it as well. We check in with the host of Locked On Lightning.
For the better part of the first 2 periods of Game 5, it really looked like the Tampa Bay Lightning were going to extend their season. They were battling. You could really tell that there was a sense of urgency there with Tampa Bay. But as has been the case for every game except for Game 3 really in the playoffs, it just wasn't a complete game for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They really fell off in the 3rd period. I think that late tying goal by Bennett, then the early one in the 3rd, really just pushed the Panthers over the edge, and the Lightning weren't able to come back. It just, again, seemed like the Panthers had an answer for everything that Tampa Bay did. But the real bugaboo for the Lightning here was just the amount of turnovers in neutral zone territory. I mean, most of the Panthers' goals came off of a turnover. And it just wasn't the Lightning's night once again. I mean, you can't blame Vasilevsky. He did as well as he could, even though he was facing a lot of one-on-one situations. But too many turnovers in dangerous areas for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And for the 2nd straight season, they're knocked out of the playoffs against their rivals, the Florida Panthers.
And thanks to Josh Sperber, the host of Locked On Lightning, for that report. We talked about Jake Gensel. He was good. 3 goals in the playoffs. He had a goal in this one, but Art Ross Trophy winner Nikita Kucherov had no goals. Braden Point didn't have any points in games 4 or 5. You mentioned the power play, top 5 in the regular season, 2 total power play goals in the series, and no Brandon Hagel as well. Add it all up, the Bolts 0-3 on home ice in the series. They had 29 home wins in the regular season, 2nd most in the Eastern Conference, but the Panthers took it from them. And it started with those first 2 games. They set the tone. You mentioned it, going to the net, getting some of those dirty goals, being more physical. They look like the defending champs. Paul Maurice said late in the year, we don't care who we play. We don't care if we win the Atlantic Division. And right now, they don't look like they care. It's just all about them and what they're doing. And what they're doing is really good right now.
All great points, Eddie. I do want to add, Matthew Tkachuk post-game in an interview, he was asked if this is seen as a rivalry. He said, I don't know if it's really a rivalry. That's what he said.
Shots fired. Yeah.
Shots fired. Definitely a little wild to see a Tampa Bay team that was so good on the power play and so good on home ice. Nikita Kucherov, one of the top scorers, point getters in the league, go totally quiet and totally disappear in the first round of the playoffs. Some very odd situations in Tampa Bay. I think it should be an interesting offseason for the Lightning as a result.
Yeah, you bring that up. Out in the first round for the 3rd year in a row and 2nd straight year at the hands of your rivals, both times losing in 5 games. And there was a report about John Cooper maybe going to Utah. I don't know what that's all about, but I mean, a 2-time Stanley Cup winner. I'm almost positive he's the longest tenured coach. And Utah, by the way, doesn't have an opening, which is makes that report interesting. But yeah, very, very interesting to see what Tampa does this offseason. As for the defending champs, moving on, 1 step closer to their 3rd straight appearance in the Stanley Cup Finals. As you mentioned, not that long ago, they were pretty much a laughingstock in the NHL. How they've come a long way in a short amount of time. They now await the winner of the Maple Leaf Senators series, which Toronto holds a 3-2 edge in that series. All right, up next, the Great Eight looking to lead the Caps into round number 2. Could the upstart Habs extend the series and get one more game back in Montreal? That is next on Locked On NHL Game Night. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Well, Tyler, we had one potential closeout game, and it was closed out. We had another one in the nation's capital. Capitals host the Canadiens, Game 5, the 1-8 matchup out east. Washington came in leading the series 3-1. The scrappy Canadiens looking to extend it for one more game, get back on home ice in that great environment in the Bell Center. But the Great Eight and company were just too much, and they close it out with a 4-1 win. Caps goalie Logan Thompson, a big question mark for me going into this series, not because of his abilities, but his health. And he was even banged up in this series as well, and yet he gutted it out and led the Caps to a big win to get them into round number 2.
Logan Thompson gets the game puck in the locker room afterwards. And the big story for me is the emergence of the Washington Capitals power play. We're talking special teams tonight. They came in on an 0-for-9 drought on the man advantage. 9 minutes into that first period, it's Alex Ovechkin off the face-off in the slot. They teach that play in might hockey. You put your scorer right on the edge of the circle. You win the face-off. You get him the puck. It took 1.3 seconds for that puck to be fired into the back of the net. 1-0 lead for Washington. They never look back. Tom Wilson scores a power play goal late in the second period. So special teams for the Capitals, a good sign as they advance and will now face Carolina.
Let's get a game report on this one from our host of Locked On Capitals.
With the win tonight, the Capitals are on to the next round. Hi, this is Dan Holme of Locked On Capitals. Well, the Capitals down the Habs by a score of 4-1, and they make it past the first round for the first time since 2018, the Stanley Cup winning season for the Capitals. And who else to get it done but Alex Ovechkin? Getting the Capitals on the board first has put up 4 goals in this series. Still the heartbeat of this team, 20 years in the league, the captain getting it done. When asked Alex Ovechkin the turning point of this series, he said simply, the Tom Wilson hit in game number 4. Logan Thompson, a lot of question marks going into this series. Was he going to be in? Was he going to be out? Was a brick wall in net for the Capitals. Ultimately in this series, what you saw was the experience of the Capitals versus the inexperience for the most part of the Habs, and that was what was really drawn into focus. You saw the experience of the Capitals that has been there and done that, and they're on to the next round. The Capitals take on the Canes next. Let's go, Caps. Let's get hyped. They did it. On to the next round. I'll talk to you on the next edition of Locked On Capitals.
All right, thanks to our guy Dan Holme, the host of Locked On Capitals. The Caps went 3-0 on home ice in this postseason to advance. Logan Thompson, 28 saves in the game decider, and classic Ovechkin, as you talked about, off the faceoff on the power play. You might want to cover your ears for this stat, but 30th career power play goal. He breaks the tie with Mario Lemieux, and now Ovechkin tied with Nick Lidstrom and Joe Pavelski for 5th all-time in playoff power play goals. Brett Hull, your leader, with 38. And the Caps also get a key player back, Alexi Protas, back for the first time. He's had a great year, 30-goal scorer for them. He's back in the lineup, so as they go into the second round, maybe even get a little bit stronger with him coming back. But an amazing season so far for the Caps. I mean, what they did in the offseason and how they had guys step up in the regular season. You go out and get Jacob Chychrun, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Logan Thompson. Those are all solid home runs. Connor McMichael, Protas, guys that they had. stepping up their game. And of course, the veterans, Alex Ovechkin, and he mentioned Tom Wilson getting it done as well.
Washington clinches its first playoff series win since 2019. And going back to Protas, as you were saying, 30 goals before he got injured. First game back since April 4th. He will be a key player to watch in that series against the Carolina Hurricanes. I do want to highlight the Montreal Canadiens, the way they battled their way into the playoffs, a young team, an inexperienced team, 15-plus guys playing in their first ever Stanley Cup playoffs. They battled. They battled against a very good Washington Capitals team that could very well make a run and win the Stanley Cup this year. They fought. It was just the inexperience that came out in this fifth and final game of this first round series, because what Washington did, it was Washington from the start, and they never looked back. I didn't think for 1 second that the Habs had a chance in this game, and I think that just goes to show you how talented this Capitals team is and can be throughout the rest of these playoffs.
Let's get a report on the losing side of this when we check in with one of the hosts of Locked On Canadiens.
Remarkable 2024-2025 season for the Montreal Canadiens is over. Ian Boisvert of Locked On Canadiens here, coming to you immediately after the Canadiens' Game 5 and deciding loss against the Washington Capitals in their first round series. Like a 4-1 win for Washington this one. You could tell the Capitals knew what was at stake here, and they knew they didn't want to go back to Montreal, and their play dictated the game. If we can be honest, the Canadiens had a great start, but they couldn't score early, and instead they give up a power play goal to Alex Ovechkin early on in the game, and the Capitals really just didn't look back from there. This season was one of growth for this core, this group that we're hoping takes the next step. And, Game 5 was the first time I thought in this series that the Canadiens didn't really look like they belonged. The second period especially. The rest of the game was okay, but there were moments in the second period where it was like, ugh, this team can't hang. But look, again, no one picked this team to go to the playoffs. No one thought they'd be here. And instead, they played 5 more games than anybody kind of thought they would. Won one of the games in Montreal, gave all of those players a great memory and a great experience. And now an important summer for them begins. It's time for them to get to work in adding to this team and making this core a legit contender, which can happen much sooner than maybe some of us would have thought. So the Canadiens are out, but they're not done. This group is still growing. Very much looking forward to seeing them make that journey. Stick with us at Locked On Canadiens over the summer. Very important one for the Montreal Canadiens. They're going to continue to add and build this group.
And thanks to Ian Boisvert, one of the co-hosts of Locked On Canadiens. And I get exactly what he's saying. I understand the optimism. You look at their roster, guys like Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield are like young vets. You've got Lane Hudson, who's going to be the Rookie of the Year. Yuri Slafkovsky. They just add Ivan Demidov. And Jakub Dobiš started in this. Sam Montembeault was still out with the injury. And I thought he hung in there. I thought he played pretty well. Young goalie. He's an RFA at the end of the year, so we'll take care of him. But I think there is definitely reason for optimism in Montreal that they're starting to build something special there. A lot of work to be done, but you can see the steps are being taken. The pieces are there. If they can just add to it, this could be a team that we're talking about a lot in the near future.
Couldn't agree more, Eddie. Nailed it right on the head with the Montreal Canadiens. One of the up-and-coming, young, talented teams. You add in some veteran pieces maybe in the offseason, bring in some guys that have been there, done that can teach some of these younger guys what it takes to win in the playoffs. Yeah, dark horse for one of those teams to make a big leap from the growth that they made from last year to this year. I'm excited to see what this team does this year to next year.
Also, a quick little tap of the stick. Montreal defenseman David Savard, that was his last NHL game. He had announced that when the season was over, that was it for him. 14-year career for David Savard. Tough way to go out, but a great career for him, and congratulations to him for that. But the winners, the Washington Capitals, on to the second round, as Yuri Dance, first time since winning it all back in the 2017-18 season. They snapped a 5-game losing skid in the first round for them, and we have the second round matchup set. Capitals versus Hurricanes. Obviously, Washington with home ice advantage. Battle of the top 2 teams out of the Metro. Only the second time they've ever squared off in the postseason. Last time was 2019. Carolina won that first round matchup in 7 games. So we'll see. Any early thoughts on a Capitals-Hurricanes matchup?
Well, funny enough, Eddie, In 2019, I was a sports anchor at the NBC affiliate WITN TV in Greenville, North Carolina. And we traveled an hour and 15 minutes west to Raleigh for those games to see Washington and Carolina go 7. That arena, that barn, that fan base in Raleigh is special. Look for Carolina to really bring the noise on their home ice. And I expect the same in our nation's capital. Those are two teams with a lot of talent, with a lot of playoff experience. I could see another 7 games in the future coming up in that second round matchup.
All right, we still have one more game to tell you about. This was not going to be an elimination game, but would Connor Hellebuyck get pulled in Game 5, Jets versus Blues, right here on Locked On NHL Game Night? Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices, no console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, and Avowed. It's easy as you can stream your favorite shows, and it's gaming made simple, all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, you can also watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus Max, and more. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. All right, Tyler, one more to go. We have the Jets taking on the Blues. Game 5 of their series, the 1 versus 8 matchup out west. Series tied at 2-2, and home ice has been very important so far in this one, with the home team winning every game to this point. And I think the big story going in, Connor Hellebuyck pulled in the last 2 games, but back on home ice, how would he look? How would he respond in a big Game 5?
He played well. He had his moments. That goal in the first period, just in the second period too, it's weird. I mean, luckily Winnipeg scored 5 in this one, because had they not, it could have been a much different outcome. That second period goal, 6 minutes in for St. Louis, when Snuckerud sneaked it by on the short side, and Hellebuyck clearly was out of position and forgot where the post was. You just can't make those kinds of mistakes in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And the problem here is, we keep seeing it again and again and again with Connor Hellebuyck. And this is a guy who's going to win the Vezina again. And it's just, for some reason, maybe it's the yips. I don't know what it is. No one's a better goaltender in these Stanley Cup playoffs than Connor Hellebuyck. However, for whatever reason, the man just cannot get the job done, at least in the past. I mean, maybe he brings it in Game 6 because they got the win tonight. That's all that matters. And you'd like to see Helly figure it out. I mean, for the sake of just being a hockey fan and respecting the position, all the great goaltenders that have won the Vezina Trophy, you'd like to see him win a Stanley Cup. But for him to do that, something needs to change. And I think it's all mental. How do you figure it out, Eddie? It doesn't make any sense.
No, you're right. He's proven he's a great regular season goalie, but he's still trying to prove he can be a great postseason goalie, and he has not done that yet. And even though he did not get pulled in this game, and even though the Jets get a big 5-3 victory to take a 3-2 series lead, he was still a little bit shaky in this one. There was some great and there was some not so great, as you mentioned. But let's get a report on this game from our local expert, the host of Locked On Winnipeg Jets.
Pressure was on Winnipeg to deliver for Game 5, and boy, did they. Down Mark Scheifele, facing a very serious must-win Game 5 against the St. Louis Blues, the Jets delivered one of their strongest performances of the playoffs. It wasn't perfect, but the Jets got it done. And given the circumstances and all the pressure, the narratives, everything riding on the line for this really massive performance, this might be a signature moment for the Winnipeg Jets. I'm your host, Harrison Lee from Locked On Winnipeg Jets. Winnipeg came into this game needing to show that games 3 and 4 on the road were an aberration and not a trend. And boy, did they. They pressured the Blues. They held them to some really limited chances. And after some shakier moments with Hellebuyck, and a couple of rougher shifts from some of the depth players, Winnipeg managed to find a way through and held strong. We'll chat about that game on Thursday's episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, but thanks for listening. See you then, and as always, have a great night.
All right, thanks to Harrison Lee for that report, the host of Locked On Jets. We mentioned Connor Hellebuck. He had an amazing save in the first period on Oscar Sundqvist with his stick, and then, as you mentioned, the softie to Jimmy Snuggerud. So a little bit of a mixed bag from him, but again, gets the win. We'll see if he can carry this and have a little confidence on the road. But Harrison brought it up. Mark Scheifele, their top line center for the Jets, he gets hurt in the first period on a couple of big hits. He does not come out for the second period and miss the rest of the game. His status going forward obviously will be a big story. But how about the Jets stepping up without a very important player in their lineup and pulling away after that point and getting some nice goals. Kyle Connor has been great for him. He gets his fourth of the playoffs, but no Mark Scheifele, and the Jets are able to still suck it up, next man up, as they say, and get the victory at home, which they needed, obviously.
With regards to Scheifele's injury, he did skate in 4 shifts after those 2 big hits in the first period. So I'm wondering how severe the injury is. It seemed like he tried to skate on it. It just didn't feel right. So I'm definitely curious to see how that injury impacts. You'd like to see him in game 6. You'd like your top line center to help you close out this series. But having said that, going back to the imbalance of Connor Hellebuck, that's the big story here, Eddie, because they need him to keep advancing. And when you make saves like the one he did that you mentioned on Oscar Sundqvist, where he sprawled out, stick save, it's going to be number 1 on SportsCenter's top 10. It should be. It probably is, because it was that unbelievable. But you can't have that, but then also let in those weak goals consistently. You got to find consistency in the playoffs. Obviously, no goaltender's perfect. You're not going to have a string of shutouts. That would obviously be ideal, but you need to be making the plays that you're expected to make because of the caliber of a goaltender you are, and you expect yourself to be. Every time you hear him talk about the problem about being pulled in games 3 and 4, he says no one knows about the position. No one watches more film on the position than I do. Okay, that's great, but I could watch, I don't know, the same movie. I could watch The Lion King 800 million times. That doesn't mean that I'm going to have as great a voice as Shofar or Simba, you name it. It's just not how that works. Film's important, but also executing that film, executing that knowledge in real time is even more important in the Stanley Cup playoffs, because that's when things happen that don't typically happen, and you have to be able to adjust.
And you almost even wonder about maybe over-analyzing things for him at this point. Maybe he needs to back off from that and just make the save. Don't worry about the technique, or I don't know. I mean, he's certainly in an interesting position right now. He's got so much to prove. The pressure is on him. Although it did help a little bit that he didn't see a ton of shots in this one. If you're St. Louis and you've got a goaltender you're going up against who does seem to have a fragile kind of psyche, maybe more than 6 shots on goal in the first, 3 in the second, and 5 in the third. Got to get more shots on net for the St. Louis Blues going forward, obviously.
2 things on that. Credit Winnipeg's defense, because they stepped up. They made it really tough for St. Louis. Having said that, when you listen to the Blues, you're expecting music, smooth, jazz. And that was anything but for St. Louis tonight. They were lifeless, especially in the third period. They had that late throwaway goal. But where were they? Where was the fight? Where was the noise? Where was the pressure? We did not see that. And as a result, they're facing elimination.
Let me correct myself. 10 shots on goal in the third period for St. Louis. So a total of 19, but that still is not enough. So the Jets lead the series 3-2. Will St. Louis keep the home ice advantage going? Game 6 coming up Friday in St. Louis. So Tyler, we've got 3 of the 4 series in the East have been decided. Florida and Washington joining Carolina in round 2. All those games decided in 5 games. Still waiting the winner of the Leafs-Sens game. That'll be game 6 coming up on Thursday. In the West, nobody's advanced yet. All the series are 3-2. Vegas, Edmonton, and Dallas. And now Winnipeg, Golden Knights, Oilers, and Stars looking to advance if they can, with wins coming up on Thursday. So we're getting down to it. We're closer to the second round, but still a lot of big hockey left to be played.
It's juicy. I'm looking forward to that Leafs Senators game. I just, talking about Connor Hellebuck and the pressure.
Yeah.
The Toronto Maple Leafs have that same pressure. And the way they started that series, the way it now sits, that's the game I'm watching tomorrow or today, wherever whenever you're watching NHL Game Night.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Everybody who is not a Leafs fan is rooting for a Game 7 in that series for sure. We hopefully we see at least one Game 7 in the first round. That is the night that was in the NHL. Make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell so you can stay up to date on everything we are doing here on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. We want to thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network a part of your daily routine. And remember that you can join us 7 days a week throughout the NHL postseason. We've got all the scores, all the storylines, and of course, your local experts will be there to fill you in on all these teams as well. I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Tyler Feldman. Thank you for watching Locked On NHL Game Night.